Welcome to Turning on the Lights. A culture for learning exists in every institution of higher education, including having a mindset for learning and knowing how to approach the learning. In the light of the learning culture, students find hope and true empowerment. While in the dark, they find trauma, including depression, self-doubt, and abandoned dreams. Student potential is not questioned in the learning culture. All students have many strengths and great potential. But leaders must turn on the lights to empower students with the learning culture to help them create their own success. Cultural competence is important in higher education, but it must extend to leaders and students, and it must include an awareness and mastery of the learning culture. This is a new consciousness for culturally competent leadership, with leaders and students mirrored across the central Mayan symbol of In Lakesh, meaning you are the other me, and connected at the top and bottom by the Aztec Olin symbol, representing change and movement in balance, in the spirit of Paulo Freire, where leaders become students and students also become leaders. And the yellow glow represents empowerment by turning on the lights to make the learning culture visible to all. The learning culture revolution continues.
Yes, the revolution does indeed continue. Blessings to everyone, and welcome to Turning on the Lights, the show for bringing the learning culture to life and capturing the learning culture experience through storytelling. I am Rafael Alvarez, aka the Corner Man, author of Turning on the Lights and the Lead Revolutionary. This is show number 12. I hope you enjoyed show number 11, which focused on section 2.1, potential, and concluded with the inspirational learning culture story of my niece, Bianca Arellano, whose story is featured in section 2.1 and who is now a doctoral scholar. Nice. In today's show, we pause our look inside Turning on the Lights to learn the learning culture experience of rising scholars and leaders at the Claremont colleges. Specifically, these are sponsors and peer mentors, primarily sophomores, with the Chicano Latino Student Affairs. Here is the plan for today's show. I will begin by highlighting the Train the Trainer learning culture training, which I provided for the peer mentors. Then my VIP guest will share her student experience from a learning culture perspective. And now it is my privilege to welcome my guest to the Turning on the Lights show. Fantastic. Welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Hello. Hi, Corner Man. I'm so
Oh, I
excited to
love
be here.
I love it. Yes, it's terrific to have you here to share your experience. I am very proud of you. Now, would you please introduce yourself by sharing your name, where you're from, your college, and your major?
Of course. So, my name is Araceli Duarte Perez. I'm from National City, which is in San Diego South Bay. And I'm an incoming freshman at Harvey Mudd College, returning from a leave of absence. And I will be majoring in engineering.
Oh, fantastic. You will be excelling in engineering. I love it. Okay. Um, this Claremont reunion is very special to me, and it takes me back when I started as a freshman at MUD. Back then, the Chicano Latino Student Affairs, or CLSA, was my home away from home. And I was the CLSA Student of the Year as a senior at MUD. Now that I have started a learning culture revolution to help transform student lives, it is truly my honor to give back to CLSA by training the CLSA peer mentors who will be mentoring the incoming class of 2024. Because I previously trained Miss Araceli in the learning culture, she has been applying it to create her own success. And she too participated in the Train the Trainer training along with the peer mentors. Her insights are very important to help us understand the experience of the peer mentors in this learning culture training. Miss Araceli, thank you again for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Miss Araceli. Okay, this is how the learning culture training took place over the course of 1 week. It began with a virtual kickoff where I introduced the learning culture inside Turning on the Lights, and I explained the plan for this Train the Trainer training. Then the mentors had 1 week to complete the self-paced learning culture training plan, which is available free on the turningonthelights.com website. And we finished with a virtual closing meeting where I highlighted learning culture elements and available resources. And we concluded with reflections from the mentors about their training experience. Now that they're empowered with the learning culture, the plan is for the peer mentors to introduce the learning culture to Latinos in the incoming class of 2024 at an upcoming CLSA retreat. Then the peer mentors will continue to empower and support their mentees throughout the academic year. Note that key resources for the mentors include a handout which serves as a learning culture toolbox, along with the Turning on the Lights website. Also, the Turning on the Lights book is listed as an optional reference. However, given the results of this training, I strongly recommend the book for the mentors and their mentees because the book provides important how-to details plus up to 40 student stories to bring the learning culture to life. As the peer mentors learned, this quote captures the student experience. In the light of the learning culture, students find hope and true empowerment, while in the dark, they find trauma, including depression, self doubt, and abandoned dreams. Would you agree, Ms. Araceli?
100%. I was actually just talking with a very dear friend of mine who unfortunately was not able to pass one of their courses in the college that they're attending. And I remember them mentioning to me, I don't know why I feel so sucky about this. I Everybody tells me that college is so much harder, that you're bound to fail some classes, you're bound to understand the shortcomings and the limitations, and that you're supposed to be growing. And I completely disagree. Within the learning culture, within the light of the learning culture, one shouldn't be bound to fail a couple classes, but instead be empowered to be successful and know have the tools in their hands to be able to achieve the dreams that they want to have. Within my personal experience, I had to take a leave of absence because of that same reason. And I did find myself in the dark. I found myself with trauma. I found myself with self doubt. I even, at a certain point in my life during that period, abandoned dreams because I did not believe that I would be able to meet the requirements to fulfill my return. However, I really truly did find hope and true empowerment through this resource, through the support of God and my family around me. But if it hadn't been for that, I highly, I really don't believe I would be coming back as a freshman this year. I think the path would have been different. It would have taken longer. It wouldn't have been a bad course, but not the course that I believe I should be on, which is to return to Harvey Mudd this fall.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you for sharing not only your friend's experience, which, let's be clear, it's all too common. The dark is the dark, and we can stop right there. But then you also shared your personal experience, Miss Araceli, which is just amazing. And what we see in that, and we're going to continue to see, is a transformation. The transformation that happens when students who have been traumatized in the dark are now in the light of the learning culture, where, yes, and you said it, you find hope and true empowerment. Not only find hope and true empowerment, you then apply it to create your own success, as you're doing now and returning to Harvey Mudd. But we will learn more about that in a second. Thank you
Mhm.
for that share. I loved it. These are the 5 parts in turning on the lights. Note that the learning culture is captured in parts 2 and 3, highlighted in red. Plus, turning on the lights addresses why learning culture and leadership, internships, and research, as well as educational planning basics, things to know. The self-paced learning culture training includes links to training videos for each part. After viewing the training video for each section, the peer mentors completed a survey, which asked them to reflect on the following. First, how familiar they were with the content in each section before and after viewing the training video, using a 1 to 10 point scale, with 1 corresponding to not familiar and 10 corresponding to very familiar. Then they were asked what they learned that was new to them and what was most helpful to their understanding of the content in the training. The training plan begins with an introduction section. Here, the peer mentors read the content at the beginning of Turning on the Lights, including part 1, an epilogue, and my bio as author. This content is available on the Turning on the Lights website. In the introduction section, the peer mentors also viewed 8 videos of my Mesa stars, which helped to humanize the learning culture experience. Included in the videos is Katia Echecerreta, who is now the first Mexican-born and youngest female astronaut, as well as Sergio Alfonso Sandoval Escobedo, who once commuted daily across the San Diego-Tijuana border when he began his studies at San Diego City College. He is now Dr. Sergio and an aerospace engineer with NASA's Johnson Space Center, with a bachelor's degree from Georgia Tech and a PhD degree from a joint graduate program at the University of California, San Diego and San Diego State University. These inspirational videos are also available on the Turning on the Lights website. Here are reflections from the peer mentors about the introduction. About what was new, a peer mentor shared, quote, "I learned how impactful this program is for creators and what makes this program so special. Learning culture is something that can change the life of someone and can increase the rates of student success." Absolutely. Regarding what was helpful, a peer mentor shared, quote, "The testimonials and how inspiring the stories are, and the words you use to describe my potential is most helpful for me to understand how great of a change this can make in my life. Finally, asked which videos were most inspiring. A peer mentor shared, I was inspired by Cornerman's passion for his creation. I appreciate that. I was inspired by Katya's story because of her thrilling success and outcomes after fully embracing the learning culture. And finally, I found Luis's video compelling and relatable with his initial start. Luis Garcia had no idea how college worked. Yet he succeeded in transferring to UC Berkeley in mechanical engineering and now a chief hardware engineer for a robotics company. Ms. Araceli, again, I invite you. Do you have any thoughts about these reflections from the peer mentors about just the introduction in the learning culture training plan?
More than anything, I'm very grateful for the fact that the learning culture has an introduction plan. Um, Many people originally find the learning culture almost too good to be true because I go back to whenever you introduce yourself to a new student at the Mesa program, you always tell them, I don't know if you believe me, but I just changed your life. And and a lot of students usually either laugh or they smile awkwardly, or maybe they look down because they feel like a little skeptical. But the reason why these introductions and these videos for all these Mesa legends that became creators are so important is because we're able to humanize, as is done with this show, we're able to humanize and see the real life impacts that this has done in so many students' lives, including mine. And I just feel that is incredibly helpful. And I'm so happy for the passion that is brought within this culture.
Again, you nailed it. And you're absolutely right. When I turn on the lights for any and every student, wherever I may be, I say to them, if you believe me, I just transform your life. And that is an absolute truth. But they have to believe. Miss Araceli's right. The introduction is very key to help humanize the learning culture experience. And we continue to do that. Thank you, Miss Araceli. That was brilliant.
Thank you.
Now, this graph with averages of the before to after responses from the peer mentors illustrates the impact of the learning culture training for each part in turning on the lights. Overall, the average increase before to after across all 5 parts is 80%. Let me repeat that. Overall, the average increase before to after across all 5 parts is 80%. Basically, the peer mentors were in the dark with regards to the learning culture before participating in this learning culture training. But these are the Claremont colleges, very prestigious and selective colleges. First, these students are among the top graduates from their high schools. And second, the rigor of the Claremont colleges demands that students know and apply the learning culture to succeed. Yet these results show that the peer mentors were fighting to succeed in the dark. One peer mentor shared in our closing meeting that this training experience reminded her of her first 2 weeks as a freshman, when she called her parents to say that maybe she should drop out and go to a state school because her college at the Claremont colleges was too difficult. Fortunately, she survived her freshman year, and now she is empowered with the learning culture to take control of her learning in her sophomore year. But what does this say about students in public universities and community colleges, especially first generation students? And these results are not outliers. They mirror the results from 2021, when I trained student leaders in STEM chapters at the University of California, San Diego, and San Diego State University. The chapters included the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, National Society of Black Engineers, and the Society for the Advancement of Chicanos and Native Americans in Science, SACNAS. The 2021 results are captured in the impact of the learning, impact of the online self-paced training report under the videos and resources section on the Turning on the Lights website. Leaders, I don't apologize or ask permission to transform student lives. And I challenge you to do the same. You have responsibility for being intentional in turning on the lights to empower your students to do the same. To empower your students, I apologize. You have responsibility for being intentional in turning on the lights to empower your students with the learning culture. Otherwise, is it really a choice whether to give students hope and empowerment or to leave them to be traumatized in the dark? I don't think so. Now we continue with the highlights for part one. Why learning culture? The before to after increase was 100%. The peer mentors simply don't know why learning culture. They're just in the dark. About what was new, a peer mentor shared, quote, I didn't realize there was military culture that's SOP, meaning standard operating procedure. I didn't know that the learning culture is similar to the military culture where it's SOP. That's correct. For students have great potential, but to truly achieve their potential, this thing called learning culture is not optional. It's not negotiable, and it is standard operating procedure in higher education. Regarding what was helpful, a peer mentor shared, quote, the story of Mr. Ferrari exposed me to someone's firsthand experience with learning culture and how it transformed their life. This aided me in my understanding of why learning culture is crucial for student success and how powerful it is as well. Absolutely correct. Not only powerful, yes, in the story, Mr. Ferrari, Francis Rowe, when he discovered the learning culture with only 3 weeks to go in the semester, the young man in Calculus 1 who had never achieved an A, but with 3 weeks had one more exam and a final, and then finding the learning culture, he earned an A on that remaining exam, and an A on the final, and an A for the class. And and about this experience and about finding the learning culture, Mr. Ferrari simply shared, he compared it to when man first discovered fire. Think about that. Yes, Mr. Ferrari discovered fire. He absolutely did. I love these quotes. Again, Ms. Araceli, do you have any thoughts you can share about these reflections?
Yeah, I think adding on to the quotes where we're talking about military culture, where we're talking about the experience, how this has transformed Mr. Ferrari's life, and then also other Mesa creators. I think that one of the biggest things that I stress when I introduce the learning culture to new individuals is that it's not simply a step by step guide of how to be successful in college. It's not just a book or a handout or a guideline for how to approach studying. It is so much more than that. It's a culture within the sense of what it means. It has sets of expectations, it has rules, it has could you define it in your own words? I feel like you say it so well with regards to describing the learning culture as deep culture.
Well, I mean, you're saying it perfectly. We point out culture, when I introduce it to students, the good
Mhm.
news is students know culture. We all know culture as an ethnic culture, group culture, a family culture. And when we're part of any culture, there's things we must do because that's what we do in that culture. So now this culture for learning in higher education, and we're going to see this in the next two parts. It has two parts. Part one is having a mind. The biggest, most important part is having a mindset for learning. And the second part is knowing how to approach the learning. And so, yes, this learning culture, this culture for learning, which is standard operating procedure in higher education, it must be the foundation on which student success is built. Otherwise, what foundation are the students building on? And so in this part one, why learning culture? That's the why, because
Uh-huh.
it's real. It's real. And when students own it and learn it and apply it, as Ms. Araceli has done, and the peer mentors are going to do, it's very powerful. Correct, Ms. Araceli?
Yes, it's more than just a curriculum. It's a way of life and a way of
Oh,
approaching. I agree because so many, like Dr. Sase mentioned, that the learning culture didn't just help him within his studying and his educations, but it went much more further than that once he actually became the professional that he is today.
oh, I love it. And you're quoting legends. I quote another legend now, Dr. Fatimata Sanogo, and she was empowered with the learning culture. And her statement is simply, when others see challenges, I see opportunities to define my purpose and use the learning culture to create her own success. That really reflects a student like Miss Araceli, who truly knows, understands, and owns the learning culture. I love it. Thank you, Miss Araceli. Let's continue.
Thank you, Cornerman.
Okay, so now here are highlights for part two, having a mindset for learning. The before to after increase was 131%. This is the most important part of the learning culture. Yet this was the largest increase for any section in turning on the lights. Quite simply, give me a student who has a strong mindset for learning. I'm going to show you a successful student. Here, the peer mentors again in the dark. They had no idea of what it means to have a mindset for learning. But here are the reflections about what was new. A peer mentor shared the self-sabotage tendencies were new to me, along with the concept of mental toughness and a deeper dive into what makes up emotional intelligence. So powerful, all of this. And regarding what was helpful, a peer mentor shared, quote, something that was helpful to understanding what a mindset for learning is was the example of reframing things that happen as merely outcomes and situations. This, however, does not negate the importance of accountability. Absolutely. And when creators are empowered with this mind, with the learning culture, but especially with having this mindset for learning, they know that the purpose for the learning is freedom. Why are they doing this? Freedom, one word. Why? Because it gives them the ability to define themselves rather than be defined by others, outcomes, or situations. Yes, things happen. The question is always going to be, what are you going to do about it? And
Mhm.
when they own this and they know that the purpose for the learning is freedom, they also know this. They also understand this statement: you define you. You define you. That's power. That is power. And this peer mentor also understood that none of this negates the importance of accountability. Wow, that is very powerful. Again, Miss Araceli, do you have any thoughts about these reflections that you'd like to share?
I think that, and you stressed it very much, that the mindset for learning is ultimately the key towards in regards to the learning culture. If you do not have a mindset for learning, everything else falls apart. And I recognize that because I, as an individual, was caught up on what you've described before as the perfect storm. I was in the dark within the learning culture. I did not know what it was. I may have been amongst the top students in my class, in my high school, accepted into all these wonderful, incredible universities, and gone and participated in many college readiness programs that were whose purpose was for me to be successful in college. However, the self-sabotage tendencies that I had within myself, the personal from family matters that were running rampant amongst my transition period once I first started high school. Sorry, not high school, college. my being in the dark. Additionally, having undiagnosed ADHD. All of these things came together to make my own self believe that I wasn't ready, that I didn't have the potential for it, that even if I wanted to and I wanted to commit to it, all these things would get in my own way. However, it was when I, through the learning culture, which allowed me to view things in a different light, through approaching therapy, through approaching conversations with my mentors, that I realized that this change in mindset is what will allow me to be successful towards college. When things get tough, I now know I have the mental toughness to succeed. I now know that it's not potential that is questioned, but instead my commitment. And that at the end of the day, I need to embrace vulnerability. I can say all of these things, but if I don't embrace the fact that I will struggle with certain things and that I will need to ask help and seek self advocacy, I won't be able to succeed in the way that I know that I can. And all of these concepts that I just mentioned are part of the mindset for learning. So they're so important. And I love the learning culture so much because it's also so thorough.
Thorough. You're thorough. You covered all the bases. I love it. But it again, it demonstrates how well, to the extent to which you own this and you're empowered by this. And it's clear just listening to you. Oh yeah, you're gonna create your own success. You define you. Thank you for sharing, Miss Araceli. Okay. Now, here are highlights for part 3, knowing how to approach the learning. I'm just thinking of that. Again, part 3, knowing how to approach the learning. The before to after increase was 78%. This is the second part in the learning culture. Yes, yet again, these peer mentors clearly in the dark. About what was new, a peer mentor shared, quote, a lot. Yeah, a lot was new. What learning outside of class looks like and how effective it can be, as well as how exactly to connect with professors. Without a doubt, this is now relating to a student who knows how to be in control of their learning, and interaction with faculty is an important factor for student success, and students must know how to build those relationships and maintain those, and use self advocacy. Absolutely, all of the above. And regarding what was helpful, a peer mentor shared, quote, time management strategies, make reasonable commitments, maintain a calendar with plans and priorities, remain organized, and be the one in control of your own learning. Again, stressing, in the learning culture, it's expected that students are in control of their learning. Unfortunately, when students are in the dark, they don't know what that means. They don't know how to do this. And this peer mentor specified time management as being helpful, learning about the strategies, absolutely all of the above. So I mean, it's quite evident that these peer mentors are now getting it, and they're getting it in a very personal way. Again, Miss Araceli, do you have any thoughts about these reflections that you'd like to share?
What the peer mentor said in regards to what they was new to them a lot, I wholeheartedly agree, because the learning culture in regards to how to approach the learning doesn't just cover studying. It covers what to do before class. And even more so, not just what to do before class, what to do before the semester even begins to become successful within semester kickoff. You start with what to do before the semester begins, what to do before class, what to do, how to prepare yourself so that during class you get the most out of your professors and the lecture, and then what to do after class and beyond. It is the organization and the structure that I definitely knew that I needed when I first started college. Because all I knew was wake up, go to lecture, and then attempt homework. And that was it. And maybe study for exams. But now I know that there is a laid out plan for me that I can follow, a strategy that is tested and true for myself when I did this through in City College for both spring and summer. And that makes me very excited because it provides the organization that I did not know that I desperately needed.
I just love it. And you absolutely nailed it. And you inspire me. There's another strategy. These are all strategies in knowing how to approach the learning, in being in control of their learning. But there's one strategy that's very important. And this pulls everything together. And that's early alert.
Hmm.
Simply put, three-step strategy. Three steps. Step one, recognize challenges immediately when they occur. When they occur, recognize them, move to step two. Use self advocacy and seek solutions. Find those solutions, move to step three. Establish a sense of urgency. Implement the change, implement the solutions. Follow up. Are they working? Are they not working? Is more help needed? Other strategies, whatever. Let's say they worked. They're back to step one. Step
Hmm.
one, just being on alert to recognize challenges. So that strategy not only pulls together all the strategies and knowing how to approach the learning, because where if you smell smoke, where's it coming from? To find out where's it coming from, what do we need to do? So that strategy pulls everything together in the strategies for knowing how to approach the learning, but also in having a mindset for learning. It pulls everything in the learning culture together. I will add this in high. That's a three-step strategy that students are empowered with to be in control of their learning. Absolutely. In higher education, early alert is a system, a process. I'm sorry, none of that is effective. This is about empowering the students. And yes, it's a strategy in knowing how to approach the learning in the learning culture. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing, Ms. Araceli. Okay, here now are highlights for part four, leadership, internships, and research. So now this is going beyond the two parts in the learning culture, but this is also part of a broader learning culture. Why? Because beyond developing scholars, the learning culture develops leaders. And here, the before to after increase was 77%. About what was new, a peer mentor shared the quote star response technique for interviews, professional summary, building my professional brand. Absolutely. This now gives them a broader perspective. They're now looking at a career arc, professional summary, or a professional canvas, professional brand, professional summary, star response technique for interviews. Absolutely. Regarding what was helpful, a peer mentor shared, quote, the leading questions to ask ourselves about our professional brand were helpful questions to own your goals and who you are. There's no doubt about it. This again lends itself to the idea that when students are empowered with the learning culture, they know the statement, you define you. Again, Ms. Araceli, do you have any thoughts about these reflections that you'd like to share?
I believe that I love that the learning culture not only includes what to do within class, but also what to do outside of class to be successful in college and university and beyond. As a first generation student whose parents did not go to college, and for my personal story, my parents did not even have the opportunity to finish high school. All they knew was school is the way to be successful and college is the way to do that. They did not know that that required more so than just that, including leadership, internships, and research. I have many people in my family that I hold very dear to me that went to top schools and were the first students of their whole family to do that. But unfortunately, because they were in the dark and were not aware about the importance of leadership and internships and research, and we're honestly flooded by the overwhelm of college as a first gen student. They may have graduated, they may have gone through the whole path and gotten their bachelor's degree, but they definitely struggled finding a career and finding a job within their own field, which is a very sad but very true and real story for so many of us first gen students and people from underrepresented communities. And the fact that this is addressed within the learning culture, and not only is it addressed, it's prioritized within the steps that we need to follow to make our own success, is something I am very grateful for.
Oh, fantastic. And thank you for that personal share. You inspire me. You touched on a theme. First generation college student, but first generation, the emphasis on first generation. What
Mhm.
that means, and Ms. Araceli is correct. A first generation college student is typically and likely first generation everywhere they go in most of what they do, certainly in college. And then and during college, knowing about well, certainly leadership, but internships and research, and then post graduation and beginning their careers. Their they continue. It's a cycle. They continue to be first generation in every step of the way. And so, yes, this piece to enrich, enhance the two parts of the learning culture, very necessary. Empowered with this, now this is really a very sophisticated piece: leadership, internships, and research. But in the learning culture, in turning on the lights, it's just another important piece of this larger puzzle, which is the learning culture. Thank you for sharing, Miss Araceli. Okay, now here are highlights for part 5: educational planning basics, things to know. The before to after increase was 40%. This was the smallest among all the 5 parts. And it makes sense. The students are more familiar with these. But here are some reflections about what was new. A peer mentor shared, quote, "What I learned was the importance of understanding what my goals are for my educational plan. Although currently I will be working towards a Bachelor of Science in Engineering, in the future, I may want to go back to school for certificates. This provides me with the important knowledge of how to approach my education with alternate paths besides my current bachelor's track." And I believe that to be very powerful. Without a doubt, it's very powerful. This is being in control not only of their learning, but their career. And they're looking broadly. I love this. Regarding what was helpful, a peer mentor shared, quote, "It was helpful to know the role of an academic, the, it was helpful to know the role an academic counselor is supposed to play, and reminded me that I can and should take advantage of using an academic counselor at my school." Without a doubt. There's no doubt about that. Ms. Araceli, do you have any thoughts about these reflections that you'd like to share?
In regards to the alternative goals and paths of how to be successful and be in control of our own education, I believe that for me personally, it was very much stressed, go to college. And I was very open to that idea, but I was not so much instructed in the alternative paths of how that could have looked like, such as going to my community college and then potentially transferring. It was very geared for your university, for your university, for your university. Although I do not believe I would have changed the path that I did fulfill on, knowing now the different paths that I can take in the future within my step of getting a bachelor's of engineering, being able to go, like this peer mentor said, the ability to know that I can go back to get certificates is very powerful. It allows me to have more education and be more instructed, so that once I get into my career, I am more prepared to be the leader that I know I am. And I feel that that is very empowering.
It's absolutely very hard. And just listening to you, this is going beyond the the two parts in the learning culture and leadership, internships, and research. This is in the educational planning. And here as well, your focus, your vision, uh, goal setting, it's clear that this too is on your radar and you understand what this is all about. Thank you for sharing, Miss Araceli. Okay. And then And here are final thoughts. This is from, again, from the peer mentors and the surveys. When asked about takeaways, a peer mentor shared, "My most important takeaway is that I need to get out of my comfort zone in order to grow and be a successful student." The quote that the quote that will stay with me is the message from the African village story. Quote, "When you find something in life that you want as much as you want to breathe, then you will find the secret to success. I will also be embracing my vulnerability, as shyness isn't going to help me with self-advocacy." Absolutely. The student totally gets it. They understand. The message from the African village story, the quote, that relates to knowing the secret to success. And it is that when they find something in life that they want as much as they want to breathe, then they will find the secret to success. Basically, they must want it. And with regards to embracing their vulnerability, they referred to shyness. Their shyness isn't going to help them with their self-advocacy. And they know, trained in the learning culture, yes, empowered with the learning culture, students know that self-advocacy is an important factor for student success. And shyness, being shy, is the opposite of self-advocacy. In fact, in the training, the corner man, that's me. The corner man instructs them, if they're shy or a little shy, that shy goes in the trash. Shy doesn't live here. If they don't have self-advocacy, that's a gap. They must fill it. They must step out of their comfort zone. This was brilliant. Finally, a peer mentor shared this closing comment. Quote, "Thank you so much for such a seamless learning/training experience with this program. I am so excited to apply what I have learned in my academics, and I am equally as excited to share what I have learned with friends and my future mentees. I am grateful that I was told about this program, because otherwise I would have never heard of it. Thank you again." Uh, I I don't know what else to say. That states it very clearly. But there's a message here. Leaders, I am grateful that I was told about the program, because otherwise I would have never heard of it. Yes, leaders, you have responsibility for turning on the lights. Our students can't be left in the dark to be traumatized, never having heard of that, never knowing that this powerful resource is available, such that there is no longer a reason for any student to remain in the dark. Finally, in closing, Ms. Araceli, do you have any thoughts about these reflections?
At the end of the day, once students learn about the learning culture, they have the decision of whether they want to employ those practices and strategies for themselves or not. But that could not have happened if they were not introduced to it. And believe that the most important thing that a leader and a person who's working in higher education can do for their students is introduce them to the learning culture, because at least in that way they will have the tools and the strategies, if they choose to use them, to become successful. And I just believe that I'm very excited to see what is to happen with CLSA in the future.
Once again, you're on point. I'm excited to see. Well, I'm excited to see your future, and that's a segue into what we're going to discuss next. But yes, you're right. I'm excited not only for these peer mentors, but for the Chicano Latino Student Affairs through these peer mentors to be that beacon of light in the Claremont colleges, certainly for the incoming class of 2024, but all students. This is the opportunity now for the Chicano Latino Student Affairs to be that beacon of light. There's no longer a reason why any student should be in the dark with regards to the learning culture. And with that, we have a transition. Certainly, we've had Miss Araceli has shared just some brilliant comments, some personal experiences, her thoughts about the reflections shared by the peer mentors. But now we have the opportunity to celebrate Miss Araceli's success and learn about her learning culture story in three parts, beginning with what the learning culture means to her. Miss Araceli, can you share this with us? Thank you.
As I mentioned previously in this conversation, the learning culture is a way of life. It is a way of not only knowing how to approach your studying and also how to be successful within college, but also how to be successful beyond college. What I love that within our MESA program is that you're not the only one following these steps. It's a family. Everybody's working together because everybody wants to become successful. And instead of it being a competition, it's a collaborative space where everybody works to uplift each other within all of this. And what I love about it is that I talked to my friends, and we were within when I was at City College, and I was like, "Hey, have you done BPR? Are you ready for class? Are you ready for asking the main concept, the steps, and the strat, and also the variations? Do you want to do RLN right after?" For people who are not aware of the learning culture, all of these words and phrases that I just used may sound like gibberish almost. What is BPR? What is RLN? What do you mean with main concept, steps, and variation? But as students who are aware of the learning culture, those are the strategies that we utilize to be successful. And those are the strategies that we share with each other to be able to know how to approach everything that we do within college. And I just am so happy about that because this is never something that you should be doing alone. This is something that is done together with the people around you. And if you have peers and friends who are also instructed about the learning culture, then you can share this. And you're able to make this a much more wonderful experience, not just for yourself, but for others. And you build a community and you build a family. And I just think that that's what the learning culture at the end of the day is, a family.
It is a family. Absolutely. And I just want to point out something, you inspire me. So, first, when students know that in the learning culture we don't question potential, that's an explicit application of validation theory. And when students as a group, as a family, they're empowered with this thing called learning culture, that contributes to an increased sense of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're a family, and in this process of being empowered with the learning culture, create their own success. Not only they individually develop a greater sense or increased sense of self efficacy. I can do it. Yes, I can do it. But together, there's a dynamic that's created where the self efficacy it translates, it grows into a group efficacy. We can do it, and that too is very powerful. Thank you, Miss Araceli. Now, let's see, I can get this. Okay, this is the second part in Miss Araceli's learning culture story. Miss Araceli, what can you share with us about your future where you see it now?
Well, right now I'm preparing myself. In a couple days, I will be going back to Harvey Mudd College. I will be fulfilling orientation. I will be getting to know all my wonderful fellow freshman peers and also returning to say hi to my friends who I unfortunately had to leave behind last year. Um, I'm excited for what is to come because not only am I going back to a place that I love so, so much, Harvey Mudd, I am now doing it with the learning culture. And I can't wait to share this to all my friends, to talk about it with my professors, to talk about it with my mentors I was able to have at my short limited time last year. And additionally, the learning culture has inspired me to think beyond what it is that I want to do within just Harvey Mudd. I want to, within my engineering, I want to focus within robotics, and that means potentially pursuing masters in other universities. And within in the past, where aside from educators, I don't know anybody with a master's degree. Aside from teachers or college educators, I truly do not know anyone with a master's degree. That is now a very real possibility for myself to be able to go beyond what is around me to be able to fulfill a master's in robotics or mechanical engineering, or maybe just certifications if I want to go back to school, have a career in engineering and technology and in science. I just think that that is so incredibly exciting. And my capacity to dream has only grown because of the learning culture.
Absolutely. The first Mexican born and youngest female astronaut, Katia Chesarreta, would say to you, yes, you're absolutely right. The sky's the limit and beyond. There's no limits here. You certainly have what it takes, and now you're empowered with the learning culture. And as I was listening to you, and that was so beautifully stated, I was just reflecting on that young, bright scholar who we knew who certainly had great potential, but took a leave from Harvey Mudd because she was in the dark, is now returning as a rising scholar and leader. And it's clear that you are creating your own success in the bright light of the learning culture. Thank you for sharing, Miss Araceli. And now, excellent. Finally, this is the third part in Miss Araceli's learning culture story. Miss Araceli, what advice about the learning culture can you share, first for students and second for educators? Thank you.
For students, don't be afraid of taking alternative paths. And what I mean with that is that I am so honestly blessed, and I thank God every day. And I've told this to Corner Man that taking the leave of absence is one of the best things that could have happened to me. And I mentioned that because during that time when I had to take a leave of absence, it brought me a lot of sadness. It brought me feelings of inadequacy. Almost, it brought me a lot of feelings of imposter syndrome and even a little bit of shame. And in that moment, I did not understand that all of this was happening because it was putting myself in the position to become more successful in the future because of the learning culture, because of the closer relationships that I was able to cultivate within the people that I had left at home in San Diego versus being in Los Angeles. And this allowed me to become the student that I am today and the future leader that I hope to be. And what I mean with that is that be okay with taking the path that's not traveled, but don't do it by yourself. Do it with the learning culture. Do it with your mentors. Do it with the people around you. And even though your path may look different, you will still be able to find success because that is, as creators, we define ourselves and we have control over our own learning. For
I'm sorry. Continue.
for educators, I truly do not believe that I would be going back to Harvey Mudd College if it weren't for the learning culture. The approach towards learning, and also most importantly the mindset for learning, is what I believe changed the course of my educational career. I was in a dark space and where I truly did not believe that even despite my high school achievements, despite being one of the top students and getting into attending prestigious colleges and being part of very prestigious high school readiness programs, even within all that preparation, I was still not ready to go to college because of my lack of knowledge within the learning culture. There are many students who, even without the learning culture, will be able to be successful because they know how to employ some of these strategies. But it will be so much harder and they will have so much more trauma and grief that they don't deserve. So, educators, I really call to you to show this program to your students. Maybe they follow it, maybe they don't, but now at least they're aware of it. And I believe that that is the most powerful thing that we can give to first gen students: awareness. Because there's a, at least within Mexican culture, there's a culture of this thing called echeganismo, in which si le echas ganas, like if you work hard enough you'll do whatever it is. But sometimes you don't even know the steps of how you're supposed to approach things. How do you tell someone just work hard if they don't even know what working hard means, or what, even better, what working smart means? And the learning culture is a path to help students to not just work hard, but work smart and work strategically so that they have the control over their own learning. That is
Brilliant. Both counts for students. You see this with Miss Araceli through her story, and educators. What I'm hearing from Miss Araceli is this thing called learning culture is educational wealth and a form of privilege that was previously available to only a few, but now it's available to everyone. And if we're talking about first generation college students, let's be clear, they don't know this. They don't know this. So educators, make them aware of this, share this with them, and be intentional in sharing this with them and supporting them to learn it, to master it, to apply it. And in so doing, you're giving them hope and true empowerment. Miss
Mhm.
Araceli, that you've been amazing. This was amazing. Thank you for joining me, not only to share your learning culture story, but truly to give that student perspective to the reflections from the peer mentors, the CLSA peer mentors, because you not only get the learning culture, you not only get it, you've experienced, you have that in common with the peer mentors. Simply learning it for that first time, having those reactions or reflections, and we've seen the impact before to after, and you understand it. You know what that before to after not only looks like but feels like, and you helped
Yes.
us to really understand that in a deeper way. This was amazing. Thank you, and you're an inspiration for all of us. I'm very proud of you, and I can't wait to learn about your many successes at Harvey Mudd and beyond. Congratulations. So this now concludes the storytelling for today's show. Please enjoy the following public service announcement before we finish with the closing and the announcement of the next show.
I transform student lives by turning on the lights to make students aware of the culture for learning that exists in every institution of higher education. Here are the two parts of the learning culture. The biggest and most important part is having a mindset for learning. Give me a student who has a strong mindset for learning, and I'm going to show you a successful student. This is what it means to have a mindset for learning, beginning with potential. Student potential is not questioned in the learning culture. All students have many strengths and great potential, and the language of success includes commitment, the secret to success, self-advocacy, emotional intelligence, mental toughness, goal focus, and embracing vulnerability. Plus, the purpose for the learning is freedom, because this gives students the ability to define themselves rather than be defined by others, outcomes, or situations. This is epitomized by you define you. Here is what it means to know how to approach the learning, including the focus for the learning, a formula for approaching the learning, and other strategies. In higher education, it is expected that students know and apply this learning culture to create their own success. Unfortunately, the learning culture is deep culture, and the majority of students, especially first-generation college students, are in the dark with regards to the learning culture. I was once a first-generation college student, and I too was in the dark. What did I know about the learning culture when I began my college studies? Nothing. My background is in engineering. I have a bachelor's from Harvey Mudd College and a master's from USC. Yet I was one of the lucky ones. I survived by instinct. I could not tell you then how I did it, but I know it now. It's called learning culture. This is educational wealth and a form of privilege. And I have made it my mission through free learning culture training videos to make this available to all students. Other videos include why learning culture and leadership, internships, and research. Because beyond developing scholars, the learning culture develops leaders. Also, an educational planning basics video is available with things to know. I also recommend my book, Turning on the Lights, using learning culture to increase student success as a reference with up to 40 student stories to bring the learning culture to life. If you know anyone in college or on their way to college, please invite them to visit turningonthelights.com for details as soon as possible. They'll be glad they did. Thank you for being inspired to spark this learning culture revolution wherever you know it is needed. God bless.
Hey, we lost her. Okay. Ah, there you are. Terrific, terrific. Do you have your there you go. Thank you. We're now in the closing. And it's gotten much brighter in here, so we need the sunglasses. Thank you, Miss Araceli. The public service announcement reminds us that the Turning on the Lights Vision 2030 is within reach. That is, that by fall 2030, all students will be empowered with the learning culture, especially in Hispanic serving institutions, historically Black colleges and universities, and tribal colleges when they begin their college studies. I issued this grito, that is, call to action, in the premiere show, and revolutionaries are wanted to spark the revolution wherever it is needed. There is no longer a reason for any student to remain in the dark. Here is the topic for the next show at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Wednesday, September 4th. Join me to enjoy a review of Section 2.2, Commitment, Creator versus Self-Saboteur in Turning on the Lights. This will continue our deep dive inside Turning on the Lights. This is a closing feel-good. Today's doctoral polo, which I am wearing, celebrates Dr. Yvonne Roca. After transferring from City College, she earned a bachelor's degree in human biology from the University of California, San Diego, before earning her doctoral degree in medicine from the University of California, Los Angeles. Very proud of you, Dr. Yvonne. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoy the experience, and I welcome your feedback, questions, and especially any feel-goods. Please scan the QR code or visit the URL listed. This gives us an opportunity to build community in this revolution, and I look forward to learning your experience. Ha ha, fantastic. Ms. Araceli, we made it. I love it. Thank you again for joining me. I hope you too enjoy the experience. Now, this concludes today's show. Thank you for joining the revolution. And remember, if you do not turn on the lights for students, then please tell them where the light switch is at turningonthelights.com. Until we meet again, God bless. The revolution continues.
Thank you for viewing Turning on the Lights, the show. This has been a Brown Side of the Moon production. The revolution continues.